From the novel written by Ken Kesey, Milos Forman in early 1975 started the production of its adaptation. The story of authoritarian values surrounding the sane and insane and perhaps the rebellious behavior that follows. Today's tale takes us to the Oregon State Hospital, where R.P. McMurphy is transferred for evaluation from a prison work facility to a mental institution. With the hope of this being an environment much more relaxed compared to the work detail involved at the other prison, he soon finds out it's not. With the likes of Nurse Ratched, his world is quickly turned upside down. The cold manipulation and the controlling demeanor are no match for the loose spirit of McMurphy. He quickly realizes how much he hates everything she stands for, but everything that has to do with him getting out is out of his control. Today, we get a better insight on how the human brain can be worn down, manipulated, and controlled through authoritarian oppression. Today, we do a discussion of sorts on the 1975 Oscar winner for Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Actor and Actress in a Leading Role, Best Directing, and of course, Best Picture. Milos Forman's classic, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is a Comic Talkers production, and you are listening to a Put It in the Basket, Chief edition of Just for Flicks. What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Patty B. With me, as always, throwing out all the good energy, is Mr. B Dog, Mr. Brandon. He's flapping those hands today. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Flying over the cuckoo's nest is what he's doing.
I'm excited for this one. It's been a hot minute since I've watched this movie. I told you I think the last time I watched it was in high school when we were reading the book,
Mhm.
and I went, okay, it's there. Like I've never really put like, oh yeah, I watched this movie again. It's like, it's a one and done movie for me. It's not. I enjoy it still. It's still a great movie. It's just it's not one you can sit there and watch multiple times for me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right. I'm excited to talk about it because there are characters that I love through this film,
Mhm.
and learning their stories throughout, I think is amazing. And two, this is a kind of a star-studded cast too. Without
Very star-studded. A lot of early act or early on in their careers, right? Or I guess, and you're seeing an introduction from one in particular, and we'll get into that.
yeah,
But yeah, just a lot of big name actors or a lot of people that would become big names later on. And I think this movie probably helped elevate that.
yeah, agreed. Now, let's go into some of the stuff about the movie before we go into the trivia and everything, or go into the discussion part. Of course, this movie was released in 1975. The synopsis of this film is in the fall of 1963, a Korean War veteran and criminal pleads insanity and is admitted to a mental institution where he rallies up the scared patients against the tyrannical nurse. The cast, and I think this is the time we're going to talk about one of the big actors' first appearance in this film. Jack Nicholson is R.P. McMurphy. Louise Fletcher is Nurse Ratched. Michael Berryman is Ellis. That one's so weird to hear anymore for some reason. Every time I think of him, I think of like The Hills Have Eyes. I think of him in things like
I
that.
want to, yeah, he's in The Hills Have Eyes, and I want to say he's also Michael Berryman's also like in I want to say Devil's Rejects or maybe even A House
Yep.
of a Thousand
The
Corpses.
Devil's Rejects. Yep.
Yeah.
I got it up right here. That's all
I
I was.
think I know exactly what part it is too. But I won't say it. But yeah. When I saw that too, well, you could tell like it's him, right?
You even have Peter Bracco in this as Colonel Masterson. You have Scatman Carruthers in
I
this,
know.
and he's
That's
in a
terrible.
small role, but he's in the movie as Turkle. You have Danny DeVito as Martini,
I love that.
and this is his first movie ever.
That's awesome.
You also have Joseph Alec as Bancini. You have Sidney Lassick as Cheswick. You have Christopher Lloyd as Tabard.
Hmm.
And the list can go on and on and on about other Vincent Scalavilli.
Well,
Scalavilli.
Yeah, Will Sampson as Chief Bromden.
Yeah.
I think one that we can't get away, we have to kind of mention it because he does play a big part in this movie. A good supporting role to Jack Nicholson's character is Billy Babbitt's character, played by Brad Dourif, who,
Yeah.
if you folks don't know who that is, and I think Brandon wasn't, or B Dog wasn't really sure of who this was before I even mentioned it, this is the man that would go on to be Chucky. Yes, Chucky the doll, the big horror franchise that you're well aware of.
Yeah.
That is Brad Dourif, ladies and gentlemen.
When
And that voices Chucky.
you told me that, I was like, no way.
Yeah, dude.
I was like, what was it? He's even what was it? You realize too, if I'm not mistaken, he is in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, he does what does he do
I
some
think
combat
he's Worm
voice
Tongue.
being back?
He's Worm
Does,
Tongue. He's
does
the
he?
guy. He's the guy that Saruman's like right hand person that goes out to King Theoden is the one that continues the manipulation of him.
Oh, yeah.
The
Like
one
you're
they
talking
kick
about
out.
in the actual movies, right?
Yeah, the one they kick out.
Yes. Oh my God, I didn't even oh my gosh, I didn't think that that was even him because he's got the long black hair and everything. It
Yeah.
kind of, but yeah, no, that's totally him.
This is one of those movies that you forget how many big name actors are in this film because they're not the main focus. Jack
No.
Nicholson was the main like eye candy. When you really think about the movies at that time he was doing, this was off the hills of Chinatown. And Chinatown was a pretty big movie for him, because it kind of like he had movies before him, but that's the one I've always credit for him to it kind of put him on the map. And then you get this, you get The Shining shortly after, you get all these other iconic films with him in it that just set his career.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. This is one of his first big movies. Like I said, Chinatown became before this, and Chinatown's a great movie. If you guys have not checked that movie out, it's probably one of my favorite performances of Jack Nicholson. But this movie, rewatching it again, it's gonna probably make the top five, but it probably be like 5 or 4 on my list because it's perfect Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, he had Chinatown, and then another one was Five Easy Pieces from
Yeah.
1970, which is another good one. But yeah, I think Chinatown is the more of the one, especially from today, that a lot of people talk about. I feel like more than Cuckoo's Nest, which I think is, I don't know, man. I feel like I resonate more with this movie compared to Chinatown, in my opinion. I think would be, I mean, if we had to talk about it, like this would for sure be one of my, if not my favorite role of Jack Nicholson's, is this movie.
Or even over Jack Torrance.
Yeah, I just resonate more with this movie compared to The Shining. I like it more. I think what it is for me is, and we're talking about all the different characters in this, of who surrounds him. There is just so much character interaction, and it just evolves his character even more, and you see who he is a lot more. Obviously, Jack Torrance, you see who he is. His character evolves, obviously. There's just a lot of more mystique around this. I think by the end of this movie, there's a lot of stuff that seems like you have to interpret it into your own way, and sometimes it almost seems like it's unresolved, if
Well,
that makes sense.
and it does. That's why I said I think it's again, this is another viewpoint thing because like for me, like I said, I put him this being like maybe 4
Hmm.
iconic roles for him, like in the ranking of top 5. Because
Yeah.
to me, I look at his role in Chinatown and think that's actually pretty good for him. I think of his role in The Shining and think that's great for him. I look at him in A Few Good Men and think that's better than
I
I
mean,
like his performance
there's
in.
a few good men, no, for sure. I mean, there's another one that I love too, and people, because I think it's a newer one that people don't like. Some people either like it or you hate it. I love him in The Departed.
Departed's a great movie.
I think he was made for that role, dude.
Yeah.
Like I almost wish that he did more work with Scorsese. It's just like he is just so good in that movie, man. I own it. That's another top five role for me of his personally.
But almost for Scorsese, Scorsese is a little tougher of a director too, and I
Mhm.
think that's one of the main things maybe Jack didn't get along with. I don't know, but Jack Nicholson was he performed that role so well, and but that's the whole thing when you get him in a role. he's going to put 110% into it. Like
Yeah.
that's and I know we've talked about this when we've talked about The Shining before. When you see how he is in that film and how much he puts into that, and I blame part of that being Stanley Kubrick, but holy crap, that dude can act. And when you really look at how he is in Few Good Men and this movie, you could just tell like this movie, I feel, and the reason I put it in my top five, it feels more authentic. It feels as if that's kind of who he is as a person.
Mhm.
Like he's gonna be that, like, oh hey, I'm gonna spitball here, I'm gonna do this, and okay, I got another one for you. I'm shocked you didn't put this up there. You're gonna put this over the Joker.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I don't even really like I mean I like that Batman, don't get me wrong. I don't like it for Jack Nicholson. I like it because I
You
like
don't want to
Michael.
dance with the devil on the pale moonlight?
No, I don't. I really don't. Not right
Oh,
now.
why don't you? Why
I'm just
don't you, Pat? Why don't you want to dance with the devil?
simply not in the mood, okay? I'm just always tired. Don't have time. Time is very precious to me, and I just don't go dancing in the moonlight. Okay. No, I I also think that Tim Burton's second installment of the Batmans is better than the first one. That's just my
Hey,
opinion.
at least they had two flew over the cuckoo nest
Yeah.
veterans from these movies. But
That's true. I didn't even think about that. Yeah,
but when
yeah.
you really think about this too, this movie has not a duo, but two actors that perform in another movie together.
Yeah.
You have Jack Nicholson and Scott Crothers because
Yeah.
Scott.
I was gonna bring that up too when he brought because he's in The Shining as oh, I love it. See, that is one of my favorite parts of The Shining too, is his character involvement in that movie.
Scott
Like
Crothers.
there's something about him, man. Not
And if
something
you,
about him.
and for you early Saturday morning viewers that used to love watching cartoons, that is Hong Kong Fooey that we're talking about. That is Hong Kong Fooey. Come on. Like, how can you not think cartoons and not think Scott Crothers as that? It's I enjoy his role in The Shining more because he only plays a bit role here. He does not play a big role in this movie. And but it's but like I like him more in the because I tell you, I always laugh at like his like wide eye stare in The Shining that I'm just like he's like like the budget for this film. I'm curious to see what you think. What do you think the budget for the film was?
And I didn't you know me, I don't usually look the budget up because I know you're always gonna ask me on these. So I like to keep the mystique around that and I like to keep the authenticity of it. I'm gonna
Mhm.
go ahead and say man, it's 1975, huh?
This is a big chunk of money for this time frame. That's all I'm going to tell you.
For this time. Okay.
For this time frame, it's a pretty good chunk of money.
I'm gonna go with 10 million.
A little less.
A little less. Okay.
I'll
About
say like
six,
that. Yeah, a little,
7.
probably
Okay.
three more from there. You're talking 3 mil. 3 mil was the estimated budget.
Wow, I really overshot that. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Uh,
you're,
well,
but
yeah, I guess I'm overthinking that too because if you think about it, like the movie and everything, I mean, it doesn't have very many settings in it, so it's not like that would have costed a lot of money. I know they have that excursion, that ski excursion that's fun. That's probably one of the more upbeat scenes of the movie. But other than that, I mean, I think everything else takes place at the hospital. I know most of the movie was filmed in Salem, or I know the movie's filmed in Oregon, but most of it was filmed in the Salem part of Oregon.
well, like yes, and the that's why I said the estimated cost. And I have a trivia point. That's why I kind of wanted to bring this up first before we get into it. The the how much they grossed worldwide was 109,115,366 bucks.
Hmm.
Now, why I want to bring up the trivia point here is it's actually kind of one of the first times you actually see this. Jack Nicholson took a percentage of the profits in the lieu of a small salary for a modestly budgeted film. The move paid off when the picture went on to gross well over 120 mil. In his Oscar acceptance speech, he thanked Mary Pickford for allowing him to be the first actor in Hollywood to take a percentage of the profits.
This is for Jack Nicholson. Yeah.
Like that shows you. it kind of like when you think of it concept today, it's like Shohei Ohtani kind of situation for sports that, oh, we're going to give him a smaller salary now, but later on we're going to give you,
Yeah, he's gonna get back payments.
yeah, and it's already paid off because they won a World Series. So that's the whole thing. It's like when you really look at it, it's like it's kind of the same thing here. It's like, hey, we'll give you a small percentage of it, and then look how much that movie grossed. And then he took a good chunk of it, you know. But let's go into what you love, Pat. What are things you love about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
To start off with it, I love how the movie starts with the open scenery shot.
Yeah,
And when you turn the movie on, typically, or when you turn a movie on, right? Typically there's, the studio captions like of what studio's doing it, or it'll say like Lionsgate or Columbia Pictures or anything like that. When you turn this movie on, it just goes straight to the movie. Like it goes straight to the cut scene of like these beautiful mountains with all these trees. I believe it seems like sunset or sunrise, and has that eerie music. And I think that's another thing that I love about this movie. It changes the tone of the movie. It gives it this eerie feel to it. But aside from that, it takes a while. Then the car kind of leads up, and that's McMurphy in the car, and they're taking him to the hospital or to the mental institution. We glanced at talking about all the different characters in this movie, right? And how they mesh so well together, right? I mean, there's nothing you can't deny that. I think one thing for me that I love so much, I love Martini. He's adorable, by the way. A young Danny DeVito. I mean, how can you not like Danny DeVito, man? He's done so many great things for the movie industry. He's been in so many great movies. He's still doing work on commercials. Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's fantastic. Um, I
hit me,
love.
hit me,
Go ahead. What's that?
hit me, hit me. And he's like, well, the
Yeah,
buy-in was
you
a
can't
dime.
hit. It's not your turn. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then it's like the buy-in was a dime, and he goes,
Yeah.
here's
He's
a
like, this
dime.
is shit.
This means nothing.
He's like, oh, and then I love when he first comes up to the table, right? And everyone's introducing themselves to RP McMurphy. And after he kind of walks off the table, you have you have Harding yelling at Martini, like, get back here. Are you playing or what?
Or I love
Um,
when Harding and him play Monopoly.
oh, I know, I know. He's like, you need four houses plus $1,000.
I have hotel.
That's not how it works. No, and that's the thing. I think you can't when we're talking about different characters, Dale Harding, I absolutely love Dale Harding in this. I love that first intro scene when they're all sitting down for their first meeting, with Nurse Ratched. That's like easily one of my favorite scenes of this movie because you kind of get that's your first feelers for everyone involved, and that kind of goes shifts to Sidney Lassek's character as Charlie Cheswick because he's probably easily one of my favorite characters. You can't just help but love the guy. He always seems like a guy that's willing to help, or you could help him. You know what I mean? He just seems like such a sweet man. And it's unfortunate I one thing that's cool about this movie, it doesn't really get into the whole background of why these people are here. It does and it doesn't, right? They talk about Dale Harding and the issues with his wife. I think he was kind of the only voluntary guy in this, right?
No. So
And
that's a
other
point
volunteer.
to bring
Yeah.
up in this film because that scene was big in that film. When you
Oh yeah.
find out how many actors are in there by voluntary status,
Uh-huh.
and the fact that I think it was kind of a wake up call to McMurphy that he is the only one really being held here because they're trying to observe him and trying to see if he is in trouble or not. Because one of the scenes that you see is when they're in the pool and when he goes, "Hey, I only got 68 days left," and he goes, "That's not how that works here." Like the way the guy was explaining to him is like when you're here, your sentence is like paused. So once you get out of here, that's a whole different ball game. But I was sitting there, I was like, and then you get that scene where he goes in and when Harding reveals that he's in there voluntarily.
I want to say Billy Bibbitt's also in there
Yeah.
voluntary too.
Yeah, he is in there by voluntary status. That's why I said like a lot of these people you find out are in there by voluntary status. And he's one of the only ones really being held there. And I think that's why him and Chief Brodom get understand each other because in some ways I think Chief Brodom too is not in there by voluntary status, but he's playing him, and that was one of my scenes with him and McMurphy that I really enjoyed. That the whole time you find out he's playing him the whole time.
Yeah.
That's where it was like, yeah, that Chief Brodom knows what he's doing. Like he's not a dummy like most people thought he was. He's
No, that's kind of the cool thing because I remember watching that movie, and he's actually from one of my favorite. Will Sampson's from one of my favorite westerns. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. Me and Brandon have talked about this in the past on our Western month. Go check it out. It is none other than the White Buffalo, which is not great, but it's number one in our heart, in my heart, and he's part of that movie too. But I wasn't aware that that was him until I kind of put two and two together. But I love that. I love that mystique around his character in this, where you don't really hear much about him. The whole put it in the basket part. I think that's such a good scene right there because you see how much McMurphy is this, he's this new presence, right? He's this new presence. All these guys surrounding him are like, wow, we have this guy, and we haven't had someone like this, as rebellious as him, as charismatic as him. And you have him interacting with all these different guys outside in the yard, playing in the basketball court. And I just love how when you see that, it pans out to Ratchet
yeah.
in the window, and it's like just perfect because you can tell that she is not a fan of this.
Well, let's put
Uh,
it this way, and I know we talked about this beforehand, and I think this is a perfect moment to go into Ratchet a little bit too, because Ratchet's a main. This is one of the main focuses of the film is Ratchet, and I've told you this before, and let me put it out there before I say this. I understand the movie I'm about to reference came out after Cuckoo's Nest by like over years, so I'm putting it out there, but I'm going to say it because I watched this movie first before I watched One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. When you get this vibe, you get the vibe of Woody and Buzz from Toy Story. When you sit there and watch Ratchet, Ratchet is Woody. Ratchet's the one that has everything under control. Everything is perfect the way it is, everything like that. Then you get Buzz, which is McMurphy in this, where he's come in and now, oh, it's Andy's new toy. Oh, it's this. Oh, this. And it puts Woody in a pretty much like, I don't, like in a pissed off mood. He wants to be Andy's favorite toy. And in some ways, it's kind of the relationship you get between Ratchet and McMurphy because Ratchet is one of them that wants everything to be normal. She has been in charge of this. This has been one of her, like, she's been well established and has been able to control everything in that little hospital. You get McMurphy, who's not playing by those rules.
hmm
It's
Not at all. Yeah.
yeah, well, that's the whole thing. Is like when you get those scenes with Ratchet and how she manipulates a situation, how she is with Billy through the whole film. Like, how would your mom feel about this?
Yeah.
It's like, hold up, you know, like that scene alone is what made me go, she is trying to still assert dominance at this point.
Oh, 100%. And you see that from the very get-go of her, right? Her first appearance, and I want to make this known. When her first appearance, it's for me, it stood out like as clear as day. She is wearing nothing but black when you see her for the first time. Everything else is white around her,
Yeah,
which I think that is like symbolism to who her character is. She's
right.
this dark presence. She's this dark cloud over a ray of sunshine. She's just so manipulative. She has a rigid adherence to rules. I just, yeah, man, she is just one of the most infuriating characters, I think, in a movie. She's one of the most calculating. I think that's why she won an Oscar for this, She really hit it out of the park. This is one of the first films I think to have Best Actor and Actress win in the same movie.
Yeah. Well, no. So there was actually another one that did
There
this.
was one. Okay, I knew I was probably gonna be that was a 50-50 chance on that, but I knew it's one of the very few. I
Yeah,
know
well,
that for a
yeah,
fact.
it's one of three. So
One of
here's
the
the
three.
thing. We talked about Silence of the Lambs already, and Silence of the Lambs was the third movie, the third and last movie so far to ever win the Big Five at
Yeah.
the same Oscars. This was the second. I can't remember what the first one was, but I the second one. This is the second to win it, and it's well deserving when you really look at them. It's a well deserving cast and a well deserving award ceremony. The but going back to Ratchet, the thing is with her is that she represents this so well of being like an oppressive and dehumanizing person.
Yeah.
When you really her character, she is again, she has been in control of this hospital for so long. It's works wonders when she's already being the one that goes, I'm in control of this situation. And even the board brings her in to make the decision about McMurphy.
Oh, that's what boggles my mind too. And I think every time I watch this film, that part alone right there is the part that makes me like angry. It's like, sometimes when you watch a movie and there's a certain point to where it changes the movie and you're like, man, I wish that had a different outcome every time you watched it, and it doesn't. And I wish it did.
Yeah.
It just makes you really dislike, and the way she is so calm about it, the way she is so professional about it to her colleagues, is just, man, dude, she is just so calculative. She's smart. She's very smart. And then that goes back to, she represents the oppressive nature of psychiatric institutes. That's what her character is, right? That's what they were trying to get across the screen to the audience, and I think they did such a fantastic job with it.
Well, one of the things I was reading on this too is that Louise Fletcher actually found ways to make her character still human, which you can see those moments where you see her be human.
Yeah.
But it's like, but she says, oh, pretty much she still had to remain unsympathetic, which you can only imagine how hard that is to do. You can't be like that one minute and then be like, oh, I gotta remain like a robot. It's like, which kind of goes with her name too, with Ratchet, when you really think about it. She was unsympathetic, kind of like a robot situation, right? And Ratchet is deals with mechanisms. So at this point, it's kind of like, I see the reference there. But one of the other things I was reading here too, she was so upset at the fact that the other cast members could laugh and be happy while she had to be so cold and heartless.
And probably when in theory she was actually a really nice person and
Yeah,
really like wanted to just like hang out. That's so funny. I love that though. That's the cool thing about like show business, or the cool thing about the behind the scenes parts in films is like, sometimes the worst character in the movie is probably the honestly the coolest person on set, or the coolest person outside of actual
well,
movie.
it's just like when we talk about wrestling, right? When we talk about
Oh,
wrestling on
yeah.
the side, you
Perfect
have
example.
heels, right? The heels, you might think they might be stone cold, you know what, SOBs. But the thing is, they're probably some of the nicest people you've ever met
Yeah.
because you can tell they care about their character and they care about their role.
Yeah. Kayfabe.
But you look at the faces, and then it's like the faces aren't always the best people to watch. It's like they're kind of the meanest people you meet. But
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah. Isn't that funny how that works too? The irony.
like I've heard people say that like when they've met wrestlers and stuff and you meet
Oh yeah.
some of the faces and it's like, yeah, they were kind of a jerk to us. But then you listen to the heels, but you kind of see that the heels put more work into it because their job is to make you hate them.
Yeah.
And they love what they do so they can bring you entertainment. That's the big thing about it. But going back to Ratchet Ratchet is such like here's another big thing, and I know I've seen this in notes too, that they call her Big Nurse in the film.
Big
And
nerd.
yeah, well, it's kind of like a representation to Big Brother,
Okay,
which
like always watching you.
and I kind
Yep.
of like that. Like I thought, yeah,
Good
that's
show.
pretty much her. Like when you really think like the one scene I always think of her in is when they're doing the baseball scene or they're voting for baseball.
That's when we're talking about, we're alluding to my favorite parts of the movie and everything.
Yeah.
Besides that opening scene when you find out, kind of the background, not the background, but you kind of get a feeler for everyone. This scene where they're voting for where they're voting for who can watch the World Series, or if they can basically get permission to, instead of change the schedule and everything and maybe watch the opening of the World Series. Nurse Ratched, in Nurse Ratched fashion, decides to, okay, yeah, let's make a vote, knowing dang well that it's
You'll be
not going to go in their favor and she's going to pull her strings. And, she makes up the excuse of, we have a carefully worked out schedule and it's not fair to some of the older patients. That music is all they have, right? That's what she says in the movie. And it just the way she says it, you're like, man, like,
Well,
uh,
then they put it up for the second vote, and he
yeah,
almost gets it.
yeah.
Just
And then, yeah, and that's the first, and I think that's our first time when we see Bromden finally put his hand up and
yep.
he's like, chief, yeah,
Yeah.
and
And he
it's
goes
like,
over
well,
there. He's like,
the
the
meeting was over. Like,
you had that much time to do that, but even then, you
that
saw.
sequence, that whole sequence, right? Go ahead, go ahead.
But that's that when you get that scene where he goes over there and sits, and then tries to make up what he, like, oh yeah, he's running third. Oh, he's doing that, and you have everybody just come over there, go.
Yeah,
And Ratchet just finds that she does no control over him at this point. What's going to happen is going to happen,
uh,
and she can either stop it, or at this point, she can try to stop it, and it's probably not going to work.
and I think this too, that's a very well thought out scene, I think. And I guess the background story, not the background story, but the feeling you get after it, in my opinion, is you start to see. I think she actually kind of wins this. Is technically breaking him down to where, look at what he's doing. He is conversing with all these other guys that have, psychiatric issues, and he's calling a baseball game, trying to envision a game that he can't see, and he's just making all of this up. And I think that's something that stood out to me when I watched this scene. It's like, wow, she's fine. I think this is the first step of her actually kind of she has the first move almost in this chess game. And
Yeah,
I think she has the upper hand right now.
yeah.
Um, that's what I took away from it because I think that's the first time where he is actually losing his shit because of her. I mean, the whole when she denies him the second vote part, right? He's like, "What are you talking about? Like, I got it." He's like, "No, you put that thing on right now." And the way he gets so infuriated about it, and the way his emotion just gets to this rage. I mean, I think that's what she wanted, right? I mean, you can't help but think that's what she wanted.
Well, yeah, you get that scene more too when the whole like when she's in there with the board and she's the one telling like we're supposed to help people, so let's help them. And the fact being like just
It's not fair to give our problem to somebody else,
yeah, and you see how they just pan on her face. It's like you can
Yup.
see that she has like an evil intention to do this. And that's what he said. And then you got that switch again from him, like, oh yeah, I'm living my life. I only have 68 days left here. And it's like, no, this puts a pause
How
on
it
your
works.
sentence.
Yeah.
Like, it does not mean you stay here for 68 days and you're done with your whole sentence. No, it stops your time. And then you would serve out the rest of your time once we find you deemable to do so. And I was sitting there, I was like, when you see that scene, it's like, again, another switch in him. It was,
Uh-huh.
oh wow, I'm not really being. And then that's when you get the whole scene of him going off on Ratchet about his days and stuff. And that's when you find out most of them were in there by voluntary status.
Crazy.
Yeah, like
And
hard.
that, and that, yeah, I feel like that, and that changes his demeanor, and that changes his psyche a little bit too, right? Because and you alluded to it earlier, where I think he's starting to realize, like, wow, like, I might be screwed. Like, I might
What
be
did
here
you
for
get
a while.
yourself
Like,
in? Yeah, like it's a sense of what did you just get yourself into kind of situation.
yeah.
Because it was the meeting after that where what was it?
I do like Dr. Spivey. Is that who you're gonna?
No, I well we can talk about them, but
Yeah, and I like all the scenes with Dr. Spivey. He seems like such a genuine, nice guy, especially the first interaction he has with Randall, because that's Randall, obviously, at that point in the movie, when in the beginning, he's the charismatic Randall that we know, a little bit rebellious, but when he's talking to Dr. Spivey, there's that calm collectiveness of him. He jokes with Spivey. I think Spivey is a little bit reluctant at times, but ultimately, he seems like he gets along with Randall relatively well. But he tells him, like, well, we're gonna keep you here for a while just to observe you, but I think you're trying to get out of your work detail. And that's, and then obviously we know what transpires after that, and we get to the point we just talked about with Ratched observing him and telling, the board that, we should keep him because it'd be sending our problem off to somebody else. But yeah, no, I think Dr. Spivey, like I do like him. I just think he's easily manipulated by Ratched. I think there's also a sense that Ratched has actually more control over him.
Yes.
Like she has control over everything, and it just they don't make you they don't make that obviously prominent. I just think the way she carries herself so much is like, she's either sees herself as equal to Dr. Spivey or even above Dr. Spivey.
Well, that's why I was kind of like, it shows you again, and I agree with you. It's like a sense of you get that sense of how much control she truly has.
Uh-huh.
And the fact being that even when she asks for something, nobody questions it. It's just like, here, I'll go take care of this.
Yep.
How she orders her people around and all that. And that's when you have that McMurphy who's finally challenging her authority. Somebody who's coming in and I'm going to show you how this should be.
Hmm.
And then she doesn't like that. And then that's when you get that vindictiveness from her because she's like, oh, we got to do our job. And that's when you really see her like, haha, she isn't just a nice person. She's going to get what she wants. And
Yeah.
it makes it so interesting to watch her through this film. The scene that I think we haven't really even touched yet is the fishing scene.
Yes. Yes. I knew we were gonna get to it at some point, but
The fishing scene, probably one of the funniest scenes in the whole thing because you see
definitely the most uplifting, I think. I think it's the time when we see the most positivity and happiness out of these characters, especially when they're out in like a free environment.
they're bonding. They're out
They
there.
are for sure bonding, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you see again. I think this was the first time. Like, yeah, you see it in their therapy sessions and stuff. Which, by the way, I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I don't like that therapy session stuff. Like, why does everybody need to learn about my problems? Like, and again, I know it's like a sense of manipulation, but it's like nobody needs to know about my problems. Nobody needs to know this. Like, I don't like that whole group session they did.
Well, what happened to like, patient doctor confidentiality? Why
Exactly my
can't
point.
it shouldn't be like where, yeah, no, you put everything out there and everyone knows why you're in, or that's for you and the inmates to talk about. That's not for it to be a discussion between you, the doctor, or the nurse, and everyone else.
But like you even see going, that's why I wanted to bring up the fishing scene because the fishing scene, you one of my favorite scenes when he gets Chief Brodom to actually get him up over the fence, which the way he goes across the fence, you're just sitting there like, oh, this dude's gonna fall, this guy's gonna do something stupid. And I don't know how McMurphy did it, but he got down and he sneaks onto the bus, closes the bus once everybody gets on, and he just starts flying. And it is one of those scenes that like you see how many of them have been so in the norm. Like Harding was one of them, big one that was like, "What are you doing? With this is not how we do things." And then you have everybody else like, well, we're gonna go. We want to do this. Let's have fun. Let's do this. Like one of my favorite scenes in that. It's one of the scenes that made me laugh. Christopher Lloyd in that scene
Yeah.
when he gets the rope off the little dock there, and he
Uh-huh.
sits and he tries to get on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's like hanging off. Yeah, 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 yeah. Dude. Or I
That
love when, Cheswick, he's supposed to be steering the boat and the boat's just going in circles and
yeah
he's just laying down on the deck, like all like terrified almost.
yeah,
Uh,
and
and I
then
think this is the first time where we get like outside female interaction, right? Other than, oh no, this
after
outside,
in the
the
nursing
only
home. Yeah
outside female interaction we get.
yeah,
Where I think, is it Candy is her name,
Candy. Yep,
where that's like, was it? McMurphy's basically love interest or like booty call, I guess you could say.
that's one way of putting it. I got you.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I got you.
But she, yeah, I mean, there's for obvious reasons he brings her along and brings the boys onto that fishing trip. Yeah, like I said, I think it uplifts the spirits of everyone, right? I think this is the part where I start to realize the music really kind of taking factor, or the score, or just the music that surrounds this movie in general. It just there's so many like melancholy tones to it, but uplifting tones to it as well. Or sometimes it just seems eerie, but like kind of lackadaisical. I don't know. There's just a lot of key elements into the music surrounding this, especially in that scene, but also when you're in the ward and there's certain parts, where it's obviously like he's like, could you maybe turn off the music so the boys couldn't shout?
Yeah.
You know, all
And
that
it's just,
stuff.
I just love Ratchet's look at him when he says that.
Yeah,
He's like,
you're staining my window.
yeah,
Um,
just it's
yeah, dude.
but going back to that fishing scene, even when they're like he tries to manipulate him, oh yeah, pay attention to the sea and go catch a fish, and then him and Candy go off and all of them try to go look at the window, like what are they doing kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And then Christopher Lloyd's character is just still standing out there trying to fish, and he gets one. And so they're all like, it's like a big celebration thing. And then when they get that, when they're heading back to the dock and you see the two cops and the warden there, it's like one of the funniest things you ever see. It's just like them standing, but they're like, hey, we caught this. It's like two big fish they're holding. And it's like,
yeah. Well, also, doesn't McMurphy, when him and Spivey meet for the first time, they bring up that he's like, "Oh, look at that Chinook that you caught there, or that big fish that he caught."
yeah.
Obviously there's that love of fishing for him, and I think it's kind of ironic that Spivey's at the dock waiting for them.
Well, like even like, and I think this is kind of like one of the last big scenes for me that I know we haven't really talked about yet. And I'm going to try to find a way to say it where it doesn't sound very threatening, but the electroshock therapy
Yes.
scene, the scene where they're all going off on Ratchet, Cheswick, and then Brodom and McMurphy get into a fight with one of the orderlies in the
Yeah.
hospital. The scene there, especially from Cheswick, is so powerful when you get him just freaking out about not having cigarettes, because that's when Ratchet tells them that their cigarettes are being rationed because of the gambling ring that McMurphy's doing. So she puts it right on McMurphy. The reason being
Yeah.
why they
Of
don't
course
have
she
them.
does.
And Cheswick is just going off, pissed. And then you had even Christopher Lloyd's character freaking out because he had the cigarette in his pants leg. And then
Yeah.
he's going off, which triggers Cheswick more.
Uh-huh.
And then it triggers McMurphy to step in. And then it triggers Brodom to check in too once they start attacking McMurphy. But then when they go through that therapy and you see him like, okay, come on, Mr. Cheswick, and he's just no, no. And then all of a sudden you hear him scream and it just goes silent. It's like, oh, this is not fun what they're going through. And
Yeah.
the fact being that they're so, even the doctors and everybody's just so laid back. They were just like, oh, that's normal. It's like, how is that normal? That made like, but this is where you also get Chief Brodom to actually speak for the first time. And you see he's been playing the system. Like, or was it he gives him a piece of gum and he goes, thank you. And you're like, did he just speak? And then he gives him another piece of gum and he goes, Wrigley, and it's like, and he goes, you can't speak. And he just gives off like the one of the biggest grins to me in the movie. And it's like, yeah, this is a good moment. Like, what was your take on the electroshock therapy situation?
Well, I think it was the first time. I mean, not the first time, but like you really get the breakdown of RP McMurphy, right? You get that inevitable path of what happens next or
Right.
what happens at the end, which I know we could probably start to get into the end of this movie, or at least towards the party, which I think is fun.
Yeah.
Um, it's like the last fun moment, I guess, but it also leads into like the worst moment of the movie,
Yeah.
or the most uh
Horrific scene.
tragic part of the movie.
And one of the most
Um,
horrific parts in the movie too. I know you kind of were leading into the Christmas party. I think at this point we should go right into it because
yeah.
this is one of the bigger. It's one of the like their last big hurrah moment kind of thing. Like you have Candy and another girl come in. He pays Scott Crothers' character to do all this, and
Be the party supplier.
yeah, and which by the way, out of all people, I think that's I think even though I like Scott Crothers, I think his part was kind of like, okay, where did this all come from? Situation like
Yeah, it seems he seems like a random character almost because you don't see him until like towards the end of the movie.
if you get that sense of him being like a corrupted orderly, then like I wanted to see that from the beginning. I don't want to see that now.
Yeah,
Like show us a little bit from the beginning, like, okay, this is one that we can corrupt, or this is something, because you get that sense. It's like, but the way they put him in, it's like you said, it's like, oh, he's just a throw-in character just for the plot. And it's like it just doesn't work that way. And when you really look at Scott, like that whole scene, like it's all them drinking and all that, like I love what they do with Ellis when he's sitting there in the bed and he's like, hey, and he's in there drinking. And he's like, oh,
yeah.
yeah. It's like,
Well, they tear the whole place up too,
oh,
right? Like everything's just torn to shit. I mean, dude. And then when you finally see Ratchet come in and realize everything,
oh yeah.
well, I mean that's when everything kind of takes the dark turn. I don't like the part where, and I kind of can go in. I know sometimes we talk about our cons on this.
Yeah.
One of the parts that I'm not a big fan of is the whole him and Billy part where they're talking about getting out. Like it just seems kind of, I don't know,
It
like
comes off weird,
it
but
comes off super weird. I don't know. I don't
but,
like it. It's like
but
it almost seems they make it seem like they've been best friends this whole time when really I feel like more I feel like more of Bromden and McMurphy have been
they've been
more
the
close.
closest. But
Yeah. It just seems like I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the Billy Bibbit character in this.
but I'll be honest, like I know you'll say that, but I'm actually gonna kind of counteract you there.
Yeah.
I do like Billy in this film. And the
Okay.
reason I like him because it kind of showcases what Ratchet. There we go.
Yeah.
He showcases what Ratchet's actually really capable of.
Yeah, no, he's a perfect chess piece for the
It's
Ratchet
a plot
character.
device. It's a
For sure.
straight up
For
plot
sure.
device. But like even that sense of him and McMurphy at the end of the movie where he's like, "Hey, why don't you just escape with me? Why don't you do this?" You have that moment where I feel like you get the sense of Billy's character where you actually sit there and you understand how much McMurphy has changed his life. But the reason why I say I didn't mind that scene is because you also see how much of a hold he has on this ward and how he feels like if he escapes, oh, somebody's going to tell my mom, somebody's going to do this, somebody's going to do that. So the worst parts are going off in his mind already. And then you find out he has a crush on Candy. And so what does he do? Hey, go have some fun with him. And what pretty much leads to him being found out by one of the nurses or in the orderlies that he was sleeping with somebody in his room,
Mhm.
and which does lead to his eventual offing because of
Yeah.
the fact being that he is pretty much being threatened by Ratchet that she's going to tell his mom, and
Yeah.
he just goes off, and he but that it's probably one of the most horrific scenes in the movie when you see what he does. And I'm not going to go into too much context because it is a pretty brutal scene.
It is.
But man, and then you see McMurphy finally just go off on Ratchet by just taking
Well,
her.
and it's almost like a twofer for Ratchet, right? I feel like in this whole sequence, you finally see Ratchet have get a victory over not only Bibbit, but McMurphy, right? She
Well,
finally wins almost. Like
in reality, I think she lost too, because at this
oh,
point now she's lost her device to find a way to manipulate situations. She lost that person that can do that. And then McMurphy, being McMurphy, decides to take her down to the ground and pretty much
tries to yeah,
chokes her.
chokes her, yeah.
And it is one of the most, yeah, it's not a, it is not great because even then, but see, at the same time, when he's trying to escape, when they put Billy in Dr. Spiven's office, it was McMurphy and Chief Broden were going to escape
Yeah.
without him. It just shows you just how it's kind of like how Ratched looks at him. You're a number to me. And that's kind of what he did with him. Like, you're just a number to me. I'm going to do what I have to do. And he has the keys, which, again, I don't even remember how he got the keys. That's the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how the heck did he get keys? But again, it's probably from Scott McCruther's character because
Of
pretty much.
course. Yeah, that would check out.
But that whole scene when he's using that situation, but then he just goes out and goes after Ratched for what she's done now, and
Yeah.
then leads to him getting pretty much lobotomized.
Well,
It
it's almost like a perfect like look at how close he was to freedom with that window being open. You know,
right.
they're all calling him to come out, and then he lets the anger, the manipulation of Ratched take over him and does the inevitable of choking her. I just think that's a perfect explanation of what she's tried to do this whole movie, and for it to get to that point, the fact that he had the choice between, dipping out that window
Mhm.
or going after Ratchet, he decided to go after Ratchet.
Yeah. Well, he got caught too because I remember that's when the guard comes up to him and
Well,
says,
he got caught too, but then I think that's when they reopened the window too, right? That's when you realize one of them had keys, and I think,
"Well,
yeah,
that's when the wine comes up because they were just about to go, and then the guy goes, 'You better put those keys down because I don't want to get messy right now.'" And then he finally agrees, and because I don't think he would ever turn back if they found out what happened. If he had the chance to get out, he would have gotten out. If
yeah,
he didn't get caught by the orderly before everything went down, I think he would have been gone.
yeah. They wouldn't have caught him either, right?
No. At this point, no, because at that point, if everything was happening with Billy's character, I just don't see McMurphy really caring. I feel like, being caught and stuff, of course, he's going to go after Ratchet one way or another. And when you get that scene with like Cheap Rodham, by God, that was probably one of the most powerful scenes in the movie. Is when they bring McMurphy back after
Yeah.
being lobotomized, and you can see McMurphy just not who he is, and Brodom can see that,
Uh-huh.
and Brodom offs him because
Yeah.
he's
And
the
that's what I think was, and so with that, and I want to talk about that real quick before we get everything, the conclusion of this. Do you think he did it out of, care for McMurphy? It
he did it
wasn't
out of mercy.
it wasn't out of anger, like, oh, because when I first watched it, I kind of interpreted that way, like, oh, why? Like, I thought it was like maybe it's just him being insane and he's just gonna kill him now. You know what I mean? That's
It's
and
mercy. It was kind of
it's
like
just him having the compassion for his friend and realizing that his friend is no longer who he used to be.
well, not only that, he doesn't want he knows McMurphy enough now to go. He would not want to live this way, and yeah, it's still a dark scene what he does because
Oh,
it kind of throws you off there for a second.
well, and I think that's the thing too, right? Is like when I first saw this, and with everything that's happened in this movie, and then you get to this point, I was just like,
Yeah.
it was like a head scratcher. I was like, no, what? Like, what? That's what happens. And I think and then obviously, basically, what this movie ends within the next 2 to 3 minutes after that, right?
Well, yeah, because you see the counter that they try to bet McMurphy that he couldn't lift being the focal point of this last part of the scene because he offs off McMurphy,
Yep.
goes to the bathroom, and picks up that counter or that
Yep.
little stand there,
The fountain, yeah.
and he throws it at the window
Uh-huh.
and escapes that way. And like just seeing, I'd see to me how you felt about the beginning scene is how I felt about the ending scene. I
Okay.
really love how he was running off into the distance in sunlight or just at sunrise. I think that scene is more iconic to me than the beginning scene.
Okay.
Like to see how he walks or runs out and then have Christopher Lloyd, waking everybody up.
Yeah.
It was a big moment. It was one of those ones like, yeah, they actually won one. They actually got one over them. But it shows you how much McMurphy has had an influence on all of them. Instead of just being the ordinary, I'm just a mental health patient at a ward. No, it's like I'm also human too, and I have
Yep.
rights. And he just makes his own path, and that's what's so interesting about it. And it's just a good movie, and I'm glad you had us watch this because it's been a long time since I've watched this film. And
Yeah, man. I know, and I know you said earlier this one is kind of like a one and done movie for you, right? And it's rewatchability. I say quite the contrary. I watch this probably once a year. It's one of those movies where I can easily put it in my ear if I wanted to and just listen to it, do stuff around the house. I just because I think there's so much dialogue between characters, and then when the dialogue happens, me personally, I know what scene I'm at. No, I'm glad we were able to cover this because this is and especially this conclude our Oscar month, I think is
yeah,
a perfect movie to kind of end on that note, you know? So
agreed. Now, before we get into our trivia questions, because you know me enough, Pat, I can't get you out of here without not doing some trivia.
uh gotta
What?
gotta get 5 minutes of stress out of me.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to make you grow a piece of gray hair every so
I already got enough of them, bro.
often. but let's talk about this quick. What would you rank it on a scale of 1 to 10?
All right, so we're gonna do our rankings. I thought about this before we recorded and what I want was, kind of going with, with how I think iconic this movie is and with how everyone that's involved, the story it tells, the symbolism it tells, I'm gonna go ahead and give this movie a 9.3.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna give it the perfect 10. There's certain things that we talked about that I'm not the biggest fan of, but ultimately this movie, I think this movie holds up. I don't know. It's just, especially if you read the book. I didn't read the book personally.
You
But
should though.
I
Like,
should. Right, I should. And you know how there's always differences between the book and the movie. But from what we were told, this is a pretty good adaptation, right? I mean, it won the Oscar for Best
yeah,
Adapted Screenplay.
yeah. Like it was close to it. There's some differences in between what the movie is and what the book is, but overall, it was actually a pretty close adaptation.
Gotcha.
Book. For me, I'd probably put this at an 8.5. I
Mhm.
enjoy this film, and watching it, last night before we recorded this, I actually found myself enjoying it a lot more than I think I originally did. But I think it's because for me, it's just one of those movies like it takes a darker tone. And I like dark tone movies. You know that enough about me. I
Yeah.
like Silence of the Lambs. I love different stories like that. But the thing is, it's like this is not a movie I would sit there and just put on just watch by myself. If somebody was watching it, I'd watch it. And so I give it an 8.5. It's a good movie. I enjoy this a little bit more. And yeah, that's what I said. But
I think you could say for yourself too. I think you appreciate this movie a little bit more now that you're a little bit older, right?
yeah,
Compared to how you were, in high school. And I think that's for me what I understood. In high school, I think actually maybe in middle school, we watched the movie Pleasantville. Highly recommend to people. From 1998, with Tubby Maguire, a young Tubby Maguire, and a young Reese Witherspoon, as well as Jeff Daniels, William H. Macy. The list goes on. Great cast. Young Paul Walker, pre-Fast and Furious Paul Walker. No, I think it's just one of those movies where that it was shown to me in school, and there's a lot to take away from a film like that. And I'm assuming, I mean, now not that it's the same story whatsoever, but I'm saying there's a lot to take away from, especially there's a reason why the teacher is showing you this movie in school is what I'm trying to say. And then obviously you can interpret two different ways just because of, your life experiences. You get a little bit more mature from high school and you start to kind of, have a better understanding for things.
right. Now, like we said, I can't get I can't get Pat out of here without not doing some trivia. Okay. And even though this is a dark movie, I found a way I could do it. And two questions are kind of the same thing,
Okay.
but you'll see the differences once I get to it. Okay?
Okay. Ooh, I'm stressed out now.
You're fine. Okay. Your first question. At one point in the movie, the inmates leave the institution to do what activity?
Fishing.
Okay. Let's start you off easy. You're one for one. Okay. What does Martini do during the Monopoly game that upsets Harding?
He is putting hotels on Harding's property or on his properties,
Pretty.
and Harding is telling him, "No, you need to buy four houses plus $1,000 for hotels."
Yeah. I'm not giving you bonus points for the reciting.
I know, but that is a funny moment. I think that's one of my favorite Harding moments for sure.
The okay, here's your next one. In the party scene,
The
which
Christmas
patient,
parties. Okay.
yeah, the party scene, the Christmas party. Which patient is seen wearing Nurse Ratchet's cap?
Oh shit. Um.
If you describe them, I'll give you it. But I know exactly, but on here it is a name. If you can describe,
No, I have the cast up in front of me. I've had it this whole time. Um I want to say it's Seffeld's character, if I'm not mistaken.
actually, no.
It's not. Okay. Ah man, who could Oh, is it Bancini?
No.
Okay, no, I don't know then. I got that one wrong.
Scanlon. That's the beard one, the bearded guy. Scanlon.
Uh, oh, yes, 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 yes. I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking.
Because remember, he's the one that's in the skirt
Scanlon.
thing
Scanlon.
too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Man,
Now, here's your
that was a
last.
tough one. I knew it, when you said it, I'm like, man, I know it, but I don't know it.
But now I got two tougher questions for you, and they are Oscar related.
Roro
Okay. How many Oscar nominations did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest get nominated for?
in total. Okay. So we got the hold on, let me do a quick gathering in my head real quick, all right? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and say a total of eight.
You're not far off.
Oh man.
You're at it is nine.
Oh, I was gonna say nine too. Dang it. I was like him and Han in between eight and nine. I was like, I want to say nine, but I feel like it's gonna be eight. Man, I should have
Now,
said nine.
now we
Uh,
know that they won five of them, which
yes, I
was
knew they
a
won
big
five. That's
deal.
how I was basing it off of. And I'm just trying to add like, what other I know maybe cinematography. What were the
Okay,
nominations?
so, well, that's going to be my next question to you.
Oh
I'll
shoot.
get that here. So I can't say it out loud,
Oh
but
man.
they did win Best Picture, Best Actor in a Leading Role, Best Actress in a Leading Role,
Okay.
Best Director, and Best Writing Screenplay.
Okay.
The question is to you: is what other four nominations were they up for?
Best supporting actor,
Which one? Or
Billy Babbitt.
yep,
Or Billy Bibbit, whatever. I don't know why I always want to say Babbitt. It sounds better. Billy Babbitt sounds better. All right, so we got best supporting actor for him.
hmm?
I don't think they would have a best supporting actress in that.
No.
Um, so that's not it. I want to go ahead and say best cinematography. Was that even an award back then?
Mhm.
It was. Was that one of them?
Yep, that's one of them. You got
So,
two more.
so I got best cinematography, best supporting actor. Um,
You got two more.
We wouldn't get best screenplay because you couldn't get best screenplay and adapted screenplay. Those are two different things.
It won best writing screenplay adapted.
That's what I'm saying. But that's adapted. So best adapted screenplay. It's not best screenplay
No.
though. Okay. So that's out. So we got best costume?
No.
No, that was an
Uh,
oddball. I'm trying to
so
think of all the other ones that
your
it could be
your
best
other
editing.
yeah, so your other two were best film editing
Okay.
and best music.
Okay. Dang.
Original dramatic score.
Yeah, and I've talked about it enough in the show.
But see, to
Okay.
me, and I know we talked about that too. That is one thing I did not care about this movie. It was the music. Like I liked parts of the music, but I never really felt myself enthralled. And you know I like scores because scores are meant to make you enthralled into the movie. It's
Yeah.
supposed to make you watch the movie without having to watch the movie. And this movie, I didn't really feel like that. Like I just
Yeah.
felt it was like, yeah, it's there. Like but that's why I said I'm kind of glad they didn't win that one. I can see why it was nominated, but I'm glad they didn't win that. But yeah, you think you didn't do too bad.
No, I didn't do too bad. I knew I felt good about that. I know I had there's some learning curves there, but
Yeah, I had a couple hard ones on there for you, but it wasn't terrible.
I felt good about the whole Billy Bibbit nomination one.
Yeah,
That made me feel like I knew something.
yeah, like, like, but yeah, that's what I said. Like, it's still a great movie. It is still it's iconic for a reason, and it shows you just how great of an actor these actors can be, and especially Jack Nicholson and
Yeah.
Fletcher too. It's like you both those actors are just amazing,
Hmm.
and they deserve their Oscar that they got. And but yeah, this is a great way to end out our podcast.
It is. It really is, man. I'm glad we were able to cover this film. You guys need to check this out. It's probably it's I don't know if it's one of the best movies of all time. Like one of the I don't know if it's on like a score of like 100. Like it might
In the
be.
top 100 films, I
It
think.
might be actually, yeah, in the top 100. So you guys should check it out. This one, I remember I saw this at a later age too. I think I saw this in my 20s, mid 20s. And I'm glad I did because if I saw this when I was your age or when you saw it for the first time, I probably wouldn't have understood it. And it probably would have been seemed like a waste of time in
Yeah.
a sense. But no, you guys should check this out.
Fans, remember, if you guys like this content, you want more of it, remember to like, comment, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hit the bell notification so you never miss an episode. You can check us out also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and follow us at J4F Podcasts on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. If TikTok exists at this point by the end of this week, we still don't know yet. But fans, thank you guys as always, and I'm going to turn it over to Patty B to take us out.
Yeah, like he said, thank you guys as always. Thank you, B Dog, for everything. And remember, we do it just for flicks.